going to be discussing a thorough analysis from this study about the basis behind people's responses when they encounter fake news on social media from the study called Diffusion of Disinformation. How social media users respond to fake news and why. So, the purpose of this study, I believe that the purpose of this study is to see how users respond to fake news. But of course, this all has prior background information. There's social media disinformation, prior research to this. Of course, fake news on all platforms. And as I just said, the popular surface is where it spreads. So current research is what goes behind the responses. But I just want to add my personal takeaway regarding the purpose of the study. And I believe that as the study was trying to say, the authors are trying to understand how users on social media respond to disinformation and fake news when users run into that kind of scenario and the basis behind their approaches. So, of course, all this comes with a hypothesis, and that would be they were built by the authors. That would be on social media networks. It's been discovered that fake news is rapidly spreading, especially because we are failing to uncover it as fake news. We are underestimating the severity of the consequences this spread could have on us. The government and news organizations are trying to address these issues so this doesn't become more widespread. And I'm going to talk about that more as the slides progress. It's regarding the Singaporean government, and it's a limitation in a way, but it's a way that we can address this issue. But a big part of this could be how we ourselves respond to fake news, of course, because we're the consumers and we're the ones who get these stories out there, but it's also because combating fake news, as I just said, is also an effort on our end. So, with the research questions behind all of this, the first question is how social media users respond to fake news they spot on social media. And then the second question is what factors affect the extent to which social media users proactively respond to fake news they come across on social media. So, the survey was used with the first question above, with how social media users respond. And then the second question was with what factors affect the extent to which social media users proactively respond to fake news they come across on social media. And I'm going to explain that the next slide regarding how the survey was used and the specifics behind the interviews, how each were done. So now let's go to that let's go to that right now. So the author decided that because of research access to quantitative data, question one will be answered using the survey method, while question two would use the interview method, which would help explain the patterns discovered in the survey. The first part of the study was a survey which was distributed among 2,501 users in Singapore. It was on a large info of portable info devices that focused on social media usage. So listen very carefully as I explain like the questions that were asked. The question asked was, what do you do when you read false news on social media? Then they were given 6 statements describing responses to fake news. Then, after that, okay, they were asked if they would like to engage in those responses. They should all assume that if the participants are able to detect fake news. So, then, the second part of the study was an in depth interview that were taking place with 20 people on investigating their social media use, which was done in pairs, and these pairs included family, friends, and coworkers. The 20 people that were interviewed are all active on social media, and these steps were taken, I believe, to understand more thoroughly the nature of information exchange in social media platforms. The study began with 2 research assistants asking the question of how they were defining and spotting fake news. So, first, the participants were asked to bring up a time where they encountered fake news on social media, whether it was from someone or they had shared it. Any example was acceptable. Next was gathering information on how the participants discovered the fake news. And then finally, of course, the actions and basis they decided to take based on all of that. So after all of this, data was gathered and analyzed based on the relationships and how they use social media. So here's the findings. Here's the participants. The 20 participants, mostly young people, 21, 25, 28, 35 years old. Majority, as you can see, are female, I believe. So then the findings regarding the studies. So after these studies were conducted, one major conclusion based on these studies and why some people wouldn't act was issue relevance. And in the article, it emphasizes, and I'm going to quote from the article, some participants say they would not respond to disinformation if they were not particularly interested in the topic of fake news they came across. One reason given was that they do not feel emotionally attached to any news, thus, they did not feel any motivation to react to fake news. That's page 9. So, also interpersonal relationships were a key part of it. And I'm also going to quote this: a person's relationship with the person who shared the fake news article also affects how they respond to fake news. The participants were more likely to correct misinformation posted by a close friend or family member. This is on page 11. And this also was a finding of personal efficacy, and that basically means that believing it's a person's perspective of the news, so you just believe that that's what the person thinks and its opinion. And they also believe that their opinions didn't really count. It's just one opinion. It's not going to really change anything. Okay, next. So here's the percentage based on this is based, I believe, on the interviews. Yes, I believe on the interviews. So here you can say I post a comment saying it's wrong, 12.1%. I message the person who posted it to say the post is wrong, 11.4%. I post a correction on my own social media account, that's 6.5%. I report the post so it gets removed, 12.2%. I unfollow or block the person who posted the wrong information, 12.1%. And then here you go. We are not paying attention enough to this issue. We are all just letting it slide. I ignore the wrong post, 73%. That is gargantuan. Okay. So, of course, all of this comes with limitations. Um, the survey assumes respondents can distinguish fake news, and It doesn't analyze the basis when they run into the scenario of fake news quite to the extent. But the interviews are so the I'm sorry, I just need the limitations with the interviews are skeptical based on Singapore's accusation of fake news, and they passed anti-fake news laws recently. That's what I was talking about earlier about the Singaporean government, how they were addressing fake news. So passing it recently can be perceived as a skeptical way. But regarding the conclusions about the study, it seems almost 100% set. It makes 100% sense to me. I don't find it completely perfect or reliable because of how difficult it could be to find out everything about an individual to get out the core of fake news. The point is in the study were talked about relying on people's willingness and capability to recall decisions is something that has a share in statistics of social media and fake news. The history of fake news itself in Singapore also puts me backwards to completely believe this study, which emphasized more to me it's widespread and invisible threat that most users are sleeping on. But basically, I believe on how thorough this study was done, it is reliable enough to believe how much data was given from 20 participants in the interview and the thousands of users in Singapore that cooperated with the survey. It's enough to fulfill the criteria. Is it perfect? No, but all studies have their limits. They're not all perfect, and this is what we go off of, and I'm gonna believe it. So there, of course, there's all a connection. All of this comes with the connection of Kling. So Kling believes that, quote, social informatics has been a subject of systematic analytical and critical research for the last 25 years. This body of research has developed theories and findings that are pertinent to understanding the design, development, and operation of usable information systems, including intranets, electronic forms, digital libraries, and electronic journals. It's related to Kling's argument based on the development findings so we can address the usability of IT, in this instance, social media. And this is the end of my presentation. I hope everybody enjoyed. Thanks so much for listening.